Welcome back. It is me, your host, Yuri Armour. Last night was quite the episode. We dove into wilderness programs, being abducted by a company that is like this company. Their entire purpose is to show up to homes of strangers and take their minor children and abduct them in a sense. Technically, it's not kidnapping if your parents like sign your name off and say like it's cool, take them, but still pretty odd. We dove into my experience with a company like that. I recommend if you've never seen it, look up like some of the Dr. Phil episodes where like the kids like go to wilderness camp and watch like, cause like thank God I didn't wake up and have a camera crew in my room as well as like these goons. They actually call them like goons before like gooning was a thing. So like, but these motherfuckers are probably like gooners. So like, let's be real. But yeah, we talked about that a little bit. We also kind of got into the wilderness camps and what they are and what they do. And if you haven't watched that episode, watch it. I was pretty proud of how little times. I was pretty proud that I stopped saying the word in that episode. That my first episode, like, I couldn't even watch it all the way through. I doubt that y'all could because I was saying and we kind of nipped that in the bud last episode. So huge props. It is March 19th, 2025. I am committed to a 6-pack of Heineken. I hate the Heineken. I hate it. It's horrible. It tastes like dirty, like, bong water. It tastes like dirty bong water smells, if that makes sense. But I committed to a 6-pack, bought it on a whim, and here I am, trying to finish it. So yes, I'll have a little beer as I talk to you folks tonight. Didn't plan this episode at all. I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, do I want this thing that I'm doing? We'll call it a podcast. I don't want to call it a podcast because then that kind of puts me in the category of like podcast, and you know, it's like almost a competition thing where it's like if you label yourself a podcast, then that means you're in like the podcast like market. And since my thing that I'm doing, this podcast that I'm doing is like so small, they're just like, yeah, this guy runs an unsuccessful podcast in his free time. What a fucking chump. Which fuck what they think, whoever they are. But I don't want to label it. It's kind of like a girl that I've been hooking up with, and I'm having a really good time, but to like really like put a label on everything kind of changes like how everyone feels about it. And it's definitely going to change how I feel about it. And I was really good at doing that. So that's what I'm going to do with this new relationship I have with this thing that I'm doing. Making like vocal love to a microphone while staring at a camera on my desk and like talking about shit, you know? We're not going to label this. This is just between us, okay? But I didn't really plan for this episode. I was thinking kind of all day. I was like, damn, yesterday was an absolute fucking heater. Like, how do I even like come off of that and like make a solid episode? But I was re-listening to it, which it's not like I'm going to do that all the time. Like, I'm not going to like sit here and like listen to myself speak all the time. I'm not like that in love with myself, but I want to listen to it from like the perspective of someone who's never even met me and be like, is what this guy's saying, is it like coherent? Is it like a good story? Is he going to make me laugh or like entertain me and all? And do I learn something? So I definitely like have gone over these past 2 episodes, and I hate the first episode. I knew I would. I just didn't really know what the fuck was going on. And I keep thinking, I'm like, do I structure these things and like sit down and like kind of have like an agenda of what I'm going to talk about? Or just kind of go off a whim, and I don't even know if that makes sense, but like just talk and kind of keep it as like real as possible and from the heart as possible. And considering that this is a solo episode, it's not like I have a guest where I can let them speak. Like, it's just me like speaking. It's definitely kind of like a decision to make, but definitely tonight I worked late again, made dinner, and I was like, all right, we're just gonna film this episode. And I was thinking at work, I was like, fuck it, we're gonna continue with the story. This week's just gonna be like a little story time week. I absolutely have to go to the gym tonight, so I can't do another hour and 45 minutes. I have to get my body ready to be looked at during the summertime when I go to the beach. I got to work on my summer bod. That could sound gay or whatever you want to call it. It's a culture of jacked people in America right now. Everywhere you look is some dude like shooting test in his fucking ass cheeks every fucking 2 days, and he squats like triple or quadruple or even whatever the 5 times like my body weight is. Like, just a big beefy dude, and these are the type of people you run into all the time, and they're just very like angry and just like want to rip everyone in half, and like they're always kind of slow, or not slow, but very like caveman-esque. And so I, as like a very like underweight, not very good genetics like guy, have to like compete with that. I don't want to be like a jacked like gym bro, but you get the point. What I'm trying to say is like, at least I just want to try to look good and not look like some fucking like twink boy toy that like only like gay men go after. If that makes any sense at all. Whatever. But last night I kind of like finished the episode off. I finished it off. I just gotten out of this huge wilderness camp, and my parents had decided, look, the boy needs an aftercare program. They were coerced into sending me to this thing because there is an industry for broken children, if that's how you want to word it. There's an industry that like targets parents of like struggling teens, and they're like, how can we make money off these motherfuckers? And they get like referral, like pay, commission pay, whatever the fuck it is. Like, they get money for getting these parents to like sign their kids like life and time away. And there's a huge industry for it. It's fucking insane. There's a lot of insane industries, but like this has to be one of the most like niche, like craziest ones. If you got in on it early and like founded a company doing it, like, which there obviously are people who did that, they're doing very well. These people are like upper class, like baller motherfuckers driving like Lambos and shit. And they kind of built all their money off of like this weird industry. Just want to throw that out there. It's kind of like, think about that. Like, people have made a lot of money off of like this type of shit. But I was, my parents got coerced by this lady who's in charge of our region. Yeah, you got regional salespeoples in this bitch. And they fell for the trap. And they're like, all right, the boy needs an aftercare. There's no way he's fixed right now because the lady we're talking to, who's trying to get us to spend X amount of money, is telling us that we need to spend more money for him to be completely fixed. And we don't want to get him back half broken. And they didn't really tell me where I was going. They just told me I was going to a shorter aftercare in Austin, Texas. And I show up, and come to find out, as I said in yesterday's episode, it was like a rehab. Full-blown rehab. Me, at this point in my life, I was 17. And this whole program was for people between the ages of 18 and 30. They grandfathered my little ass in there. They were like, it'll be good for them. Now, my parents obviously knew that, like, they knew I wasn't doing, like, drugs, like, hard drugs. But, like, they had caught me with weed and shit. And, like, they definitely had, like, found my vapes before. I remember, like, coming home a couple times, and like I'd have my buddies with me, and like we would pull up to my house, just to like hang out. And then this one time we pull up, like we walk into the kitchen, it's me and my two buddies in my house. We just get in, our kitchen's like right there. And on our kitchen counter is everything that I had in my like stash. Cause I had like a stash of like bullshit. I started vaping like I first tried to vape in the 8th grade, and by the end of 8th grade, like back in the old day, you could order a vape off of eBay, and you could order the juice off of eBay. And so I just got that stuff like sent to my buddy's house, and I would go pick it up because, in 8th grade, I was going out with some guys in the neighborhood and like stealing my dad's bourbon and pouring it in a Gatorade bottle, and we would like walk around the neighborhood because we weren't driving at this point, we would just shoot like bourbon in our mouths from this like Gatorade, like NFL, like the NFL players like that, like with the water, like on the sideline, but like we were doing that with bourbon and just shooting it straight. But I needed a vape, and so I've been vaping for a long time. I ordered a vape and had like, it was like a Kanger Tech box mod, if y'all remember like what those were. Obviously, not obviously. I think we should go back to that like vape trend, because like those big like geeky like box mod vapes were like the coolest thing ever. I can still remember like the taste of like the juice I had. But yeah, obviously my parents know I vaped, and to go back, they pull out my entire stash of like shit, and I've got like box mod vapes, I've got disposable vapes that died, I got a Juul, I got the Juul charger and the stuff. And I mentioned last episode that like I was grounded a lot, so that means like a lot of my internet privileges and phone and everything was revoked. And they found these two like pictures I'd printed out of like just straight up porn. Because I couldn't, I was a fucking teenager. Like I was, I had printed off porn off of our family printer, and I'd put it in this stash of all this other like shit I wasn't supposed to have, and it was sitting right there on the counter for everyone to see, my buddies and my parents. And I think there might have been like a little empty alcohol bottle or two on there. Like that's, I don't know where I was really going with all that, but I do know, this, like they knew like, that was the type of shit I was on. I was just like drinking, and I definitely like loved to vape. And they'd caught me with pot a couple times on like separate occasions, or like caught me smoking pot at the house, or like this and that. And so they're like, yeah, rehab is the best decision for this kid. Like, obviously he's going to be like shooting heroin next, And so I go through the onboarding process, and they throw me into this place, and it's like a little like city neighborhood. So like you drive in on this street, it's like a dead end street, and you drive, and like to the end of the street there's like it's all fenced in, and there's like a office, but it all looks like a house. So there's like a house here, which is like the office, and like right across there is like another house. And this place was like, it's just like renovated into a like full-blown rehab. But COVID was rampant, so they checked me into this place, and this dude, asked me what drugs I do or whatever. And I remember they're like, all right, well, now you got to quarantine for like a week by yourself. And granted, I told y'all, like, I was just getting out of the fucking desert, and so I'm like, really? Like, I hadn't seen civilization in forever, and you're going to stick me in a room? They're like, well, we got to, or whatever. And so they put me in this room, and the room had a fucking TV in it. And I was like, you know what? Things actually aren't as bad as they seem. Like, I'm going to sit in here, and I'm going to watch TV until they tell me whatever. So I had a quarantine for a week, and I remember at like the 3-day mark, this dude walks in, like one of the staff, and he's like, hey, bro. And I was like, what? And he's like, do you want a cigarette? And I'm like, why is this guy offering me a cigarette? I just didn't get it. But, obviously, there's no way in fuck I'm going to say no to a cigarette. I hadn't had nicotine in like 100 or plus days. I'm like, yeah, I really do. And he's like, all right, well, put on your mask and like walk with me out here. So we walk out to this like picnic table in the backyard, and I remember sitting there, and he gives me like a Marlboro Red, and I remember like hitting it, and I took like a deep inhale, and I exhaled, and I fucking face planted off the picnic table. Like I was so buzzed that I just fucking like fall off this picnic table and kind of like lay on the ground, and he just starts fucking laughing his ass off, and I was like, dude, like I know that looks fucking stupid as shit, but like, I just got, I was trying to tell him like I hadn't had nicotine in fucking forever, like I just got out the fucking desert, this shit hits. Anyway, the fucking quarantine ends and they introduce me to all these people. There's like 30 or 40 guys in there. Everybody sleeps in bunk beds. Like we all share like 4 bathrooms. There was like you could bring clothes in, and my parents like packed me a bag, so I had like a clothes and like shit that belonged to me, which I like really liked. We had like a private chef, and basically like we would wake up every morning, like dude, at like 6 a.m. They would just like come and like bang on the fucking doors and like flick the lights on, and we're all sleeping in these like bunk beds, and they would just force us to get up and like go. And so the office building, the main like living building, and there's this other smaller building like a rec center almost, but like dude, it was fucking tiny, like a single room, and they would force us to go in there and like lay on these yoga mats, and they would play like ambient sounds, 528 hertz on like some big ass speaker, and they told us all to like meditate and like find our higher power. So it's a 12-step program, meaning that like it is Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, Narcotics Anonymous, the NA, like it is a 12-step program, and 12 steps is like this book some dude wrote about being a drug addict, and like that's what the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings are all about. And so yoga in the morning, meditate, and then they would like, we had to like go like work out, we had time to learn, and then they would like force us to do these like groups throughout the day, different like agendas of shit throughout the day, or whatever. And it's COVID, so normally like they would put us all on like the bus or whatever, this like short bus, and like drive us out to like these like AA meetings where we would like meet and talk about like why we love drugs and why we were like sucking dick for drugs and shit. I never sucked dick for drugs. Disclaimer, I didn't. And that's probably a bit vulgar, and it's probably actually like kind of fucked up. I just said that because like some people were just that like down bad. It was a disease, as I came to learn. I remember my first AA meeting though, like I was sitting in there, and you're just kind of, granted, like I'm coming out of the desert, and like I really hadn't talked to like, I wouldn't even say normal people, but like civilized folk who haven't really been in like programs their whole life. And so these were like the first, like, I would say normal guys I was like able to talk to in like a long time. But like obviously they're all drug addicts, and most of the people in there were probably in there for like Xanax was a big one, Coke was a big one. There was a lot of like amphetamine people, so like painkillers and like perks and like shit like that. And then obviously like on the upper like levels of this like weird drug like caste system, there was the dudes who were like shooting heroin and smoking meth, and like then like there was like 2 guys who like were doing drugs that don't even have like a public name to them. They just called them like research chemicals, like those dudes were at the top, and you could obviously tell that these dudes love to do research chemicals because you couldn't hold a conversation with them for more than 10 seconds at a time because they would just kind of like disappear and go somewhere else. I remember my first AA meeting, and these meetings you have to start it with like, if you want to speak, you have to say, hi, my name's Patrick and I'm an alcoholic. Or if some of them would say, hi, my name's Patrick and I'm a drug addict, or like Yeah. And then you would just like, so they read like a passage from the book. They like pray. There's like prayers that you do before, and then someone reads a passage from the book, and everyone, it kind of opens up to discussion of like, talk about what you are either like A, feeling in the moment, or B, like something that has to do in your life with this passage we just read. And it's a good program. Like, I'm not shitting on the program at all. Like, it really is like a solid foundation for like a good program. It's just that at this point, I was addicted to vapes, and I felt stupid as fuck saying that. I remember over the course of the whole program, every time I would like talk, because I was able to relate a lot of like these issues with like behavioral issues I was having. So a lot of these like how to, let's see, like a good example. The impulsiveness of like buying drugs when you were feeling bad, and like doing them and like hurting those around you just because of an impulsive decision of like you're in pain and you need like something to fix that. Like, I was doing that in other ways, and it was usually something that like was reckless and put my life at risk, but I was just doing it just cuz, you know, I didn't give a fuck. And the whole kind of mentality of the whole program is like, I don't give a fuck. And like everyone kind of shares this like really toxic mentality of like, I don't give a fuck about me or those around me, and I don't care about what I do and if it affects anyone, you know. Like, everyone shares that mindset, whether it's because of drugs or this or that. And so I was able to relate a lot. But, you know, and these meetings are in Zoom, so it would be our whole, like, we're all these like 40 dudes like crammed in this like big ass living room, and we're in a Zoom call, and it's just, you know, it has our like rehab name on our camera, and there's like 10 or 12 other like either rehabs or like individuals just like parked in these rooms. And you know, I speak at a couple of them, and I didn't know whether to say like, hi, my name's Patrick and I'm an addict, or like, hi, my name's Patrick and I'm like an alcoholic. I think one time I said something like, hi, my name's Patrick and I'm like I'm a fuck up, is what I said. And they got a giggle out of it. But then like the leaders were like, she called me out. She's like, well, what are you actually, you know, are you an addict, you know, or alcoholic? And I was like, I just froze, and all these people were like waiting on me to say something. And I was like, I'm an addict, you know. Just, I had to pick one or the other, and it's just like weird trying to like, because as my therapist there explained to me, she says, while you may not be addicted to drugs right now, you know, thinking about this, I'm like, damn. But while you may not be addicted to drugs right now, based on your behavioral past and all the information that the previous place gave to us, you show signs of being like an extreme risk, like drug addict. Now, you may not have done any drugs now, but in the future, you know, if we don't nip this in the bud now, you show the tendencies of being a drug addict. And I was like, you're full of shit. Like, no, I don't. You're just making shit up to keep me here and tell me that like I'm insane and that, you know, I still need to like learn to not do drugs. And I was like, because at this point I had this like personal motto. It's like, if I have to put it in my nose or swallow it like you know, or shoot it in my arm or anything, like, I'm not going to do it. I'll smoke weed, you know, or vape or whatever. But like, I'm not like, I told myself I'm not going to do any hard drugs. Like, because to me, it was just foreign. The idea was foreign. It never seemed cool to me. It didn't seem anything like exciting about it. And just hearing these dudes in this program talk about like how deep they went with it, I was like, I don't think that I'm actually going to ever do these drugs. Like, and every week we got a phone call with our parents, and I would just tell my parents like, what the fuck am I doing here? And I would like pick the worst stories that I heard that week from these people, and I'm like, listen to this load of shit. It's not a load of shit. These are like people's real life like traumas. Listen to like what this guy told me like yesterday morning at like 7 a.m. You know, he was like sucking dick in a motel to get some meth with his son in the car. This guy told everyone in the group that, and my parents were like, that's fucking horrible. And I was like, yeah, I know. Why am I here? I really didn't want to be there, but I was trying to learn. Like, I was happy to be back in civilization. I was happy, we had a chef and he would cook us like really good food. And I came to like be friends with the chef. I'm like, dude, you cook some phenomenal shit. Like, kudos to you, pal. But the whole time I'm there, I'm like, fuck, like, I'm just waiting to leave. We and all like normally they take you on these like little like drug addict field trips where they like pile you into this short bus and like drive you out around the town. And but like since COVID was happening and all the kids coming in had to get quarantined, they were like super reluctant to do it for a long time. I just remember like being stuck on this property forever. But I was like, I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna come home like jacked. So like people think I went to like prison or something. I'm gonna get somebody give me like a stick and poke on my eyeball or something, or some crazy shit like that. But yeah, it was a fucking trip. Like, no pun intended, but like that shit was a fucking trip. Let's see some of the highlights that happened. So I mentioned that we had TVs. There's a TV in the quarantine room, and there's a TV in this other room that nobody was allowed to sleep in because it was quarantine room number 2. These TVs, you could watch stuff on them, but they all had like a password that the staff had to come and like unlock the TV. So you could access like Netflix, and then all smart TVs nowadays have an internet browser. So I remember we get this new guy in, and I see him for literally like I hear that like there's a new guy here and he's walking in right now, and he walks past and like goes to the room and like staff shuts it or whatever, and they leave, and I like circle back in like 5 minutes, and I like open the door real quick, and I'm like, hey, he's like, what? I'm like, this guy that's about to come in is gonna punch in a code on the TV. Like, I need you to tell me what it is. Can you do that for me? And he's like, yeah, I can try. And so 7 days go by, and like, we know the guy's in there because he like eats and like gets his food by himself. Or no, the staff would like take the food to him, so we like know he's like still functioning. And we heard he kind of like crashed out because like it's a quarantine and a required detox, because a lot of these dudes are coming off like heavy shit, and they like full like crash out during the like second day, and they're all like tweaking out like heavy because they're coming off of like PCP or whatever, and they're just fucking like losing their shit because they're locked in a room. So anyway, like 7 days go by, and this kid's like, he like walks out, and the first thing he does is like find me. He says, I remember the code, I can punch it in. I was like, yes. And so we hatched a plan, and I got like 2 or 3 of my like closest buddies. This probably sounds like familiar if you listen to last episode, but we hatched a plan, and I'm like, look, boys, like we're gonna go and we're gonna access the internet. And these dudes were all over. They were like Google, like we could look up whatever we want. And I was like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And so like, and this place is like pretty chill, considering that all these guys were adults. They aren't legally allowed to like keep you at this place. Now they'll follow you if you leave the property, which people left the property. I left the property, which I'll get to, but they'll follow you, and like, some dudes would just get fed up and they're like, I don't want this rehab shit, fuck it. And so they leave, but they don't have anything, they don't have anything. And they would just go and like walk down the street and try to like bum a beer at the closest gas station or something. Like, you just go homeless basically. If you leave, you're homeless, and they have one of the staffs follow you in a car and start like quoting the big book at you, trying to like get you back to the program. And so anyway, yeah, so at nighttime, like, they just leave you the fuck alone. And all hell would kind of break loose at nighttime. Like, if you were too loud, they would come the fuck over and, like, scream at everyone. But, like, for the most part, you could do whatever you wanted at night. You couldn't watch TV or anything. But so me and, like, 3 guys, we, like, pile into, like, quarantine room number 2. Because I think another dude was, like, crashing out in quarantine room number 1. And the new guy's with us, like, the new guy. And I'm like, all right, here's the remote, like, punch in the code. And he punches in the code, and the fucking like
we get access. And I remember everyone like was like, yes, yes, you know, like high fives all around, you know, because we had the freedom to kind of decide, you know, we want to watch TV or whatever we're gonna do. Um, and so we get on there, and I was like, somebody like pull up Instagram, type in Instagram, and it's not like a smart TV where you could like voice anything, you know, say like open Instagram on web browser. Like it was one of the like it has like a D-pad, and you gotta like click up and right and like click the middle button to like select a letter. And so it took forever to type anything into this fucking TV. And we type in Instagram, and I'm like, I'm gonna log in. I gotta message somebody. And so I log into my Instagram. It takes me like 2 minutes to like log in and like type all my shit out. And I remember I DM'd like my homie, and I was like, yo, I'm alive. I'm DMing you on a TV. Hope all is well. You know, kind of like, you know, abbreviating everything. And I was like, I gotta text this girl. So I DM'd like this girl. I mentioned her last episode, but I DM'd her. I don't even remember what I said, but I'm pretty sure I had to let them know like what I was doing was fucking nuts, and it's impossible to be able to communicate with people from the outside world, because one of their big things is like you can't talk to certain people from the outside world because they were your drug friends or they were people you were using with, and like it's really, really bad for your rehabilitation. And here I am, because, you know, I just wanted to talk to these people, but I might have been enabling some of these other guys to like hit up their homies or whatever. So anyway, everyone like logs into their Instagram, like shoots DMs out, and then eventually some dude's like, we gotta look it up. We have to. I haven't seen it in a very long time, and I want to watch it. And everyone was like, what? Like, no, it's crazy, dude. There's like 4 guys in here. Like, what do you think you're gonna do? He's like, it's been too fucking long, and I couldn't give a fuck if y'all were in here or not. I'm gonna look it up. And so he did. He looked it up. If you don't know what I'm mentioning, if you don't know what I'm like talking about, don't worry about it. But he looked it up, and we're all sitting in there, and I was like, you know, enough's enough. It's been a long time, but like I'm not this down bad. And so we give them the remote, and like me and like one other guy left, and the other 2 like guys in there, sitting there and just like fucking butcher flatten their meat. You know what I mean? Like hit it with a mallet type shit. Crazy. I enabled them. Some of these dudes would say that their DOC was straight up like sexy videos on the internet. I'm trying to be like as like kindergarten as possible, but like yeah, they would say like I'm addicted. And one of those dudes was in there. He was actually, I think, the guy with the idea. He was like, yeah, like I know what I want to. I don't have to DM anybody, is what he was saying. He's like, I don't need to DM anybody, but I do need to look something up. And we were like, oh fuck. But you know, it obviously he wasn't rehabilitated yet, and that's on him, I guess. It was kind of on me. Like I didn't need to get on the internet, but you know, while these kids were addicted to doing drugs, they're not kids. They were all older than me. I was the youngest one in there. While they're all addicted to doing drugs and stuff, like I was addicted to just causing trouble. Like I loved it. I loved just like figuring out ways to like break the rules. And that's what I was doing. And eventually, you know, the TV privileges, like we would like go and like every night we would just like because we only had like a circle of people that we trusted. It was like prison. You know, you kind of like join a gang of like people with similar interests, but like, you know, not everyone gets along all the time, but like you definitely didn't trust anybody out that was like outside of the circle. And so we'd bring different people in there that like we trusted, and like, you know, we would like, it was like a ceremony where we'd like be like, come and meet us at this door at like this time, and they would like show up, and we would like open the door, and there'd be like a guy in there like woo, like looking around, and the TV would come on. We'd like present them the remote and tell them how to unlock it. It was like getting like, you know, subscribing to like the occult or something. Like it was pretty solid, but we definitely didn't trust anybody outside of our circle.
But that only lasted so long. Like, obviously, like, I needed to do something else that, like, got my adrenaline pumping or whatever. And I met this one dude, and he was actually from Mississippi. He actually played soccer for the same coach that I played soccer for like a long time. But he was like in an older league than I was. He was like 2 or 3 years older than me, and knew all the same guys I went to high school with and played high school soccer with. And he was like super, super cool. His name was Jake. I hope you're doing well, Jake. I really do. But anyway, so me and him kind of like, we just hit it off. You know, we knew each other through this and that or whatever. And anyway, one night, I was like, Jake, I figured it out. And he's like, what'd you figure out, Pat? I'm like, look, you know those MacBooks that the staff bring in, like, when they're, like, doing work and, like, leading these groups with us? He's like, yeah. I'm like, they don't take these MacBooks home. These MacBooks stay in the office across the street that's on, like, the property. And he's like, so what are you talking? Like, what do you mean? I'm like, what I mean is we can go and take these MacBooks and we can message whoever we want to message if we sign into our iCloud. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember, y'all. I keep saying it's hard to remember, but it is hard to remember. Was it the staff's MacBook or was it his MacBook that was in his bag that they kept away from us? I think it was the staff's MacBook. He had like a phone or something in his bag that he was like saying we should go get. But no, it was the staff's MacBook that they kept in the office and it was charging overnight. I know, okay, and I know that because it was summertime and I was behind on my high school credits because all the other kids in my high school class were doing online classes during COVID, but I was in the middle of, whatever I had going on. And I hadn't done any class, and I was behind in high school. And so they gave me and me only the privilege to go to this office for like 4 hours out of the day and work on like an issued MacBook. It was somebody's MacBook that they kept in this office. And they would put me in there. Oh my fucking God. I'm about to tell you all the craziest shit ever. But they would put me in there and I would like do schoolwork and stuff, but I don't remember if the TV came first or whatever, but like I do remember like I would close this office door and it would just be me and this computer. And I'm not gonna lie, like I don't even know if I should say this considering that this is gonna be like live to the world, but like there was one time where I like, hold on, let me decide if like this is like, I can't blue ball y'all. Like if I'm gonna not say it, like I'm just gonna edit it out. There was one time where I realized that I could look up anything I wanted to on the laptop. And so I went to the bathroom and like they had staff in there who were like monitoring me do schoolwork, which they weren't keeping like a close eye on, but they was making sure I wasn't fucking around and like playing shit on the computer or whatever. Or messaging people, which I definitely was. But there's one time I like, went to the bathroom and like grabbed some toilet paper because like I wasn't finna jerk off in a room with like a TV and a bunch of dudes watching like the same video on the screen. Like that's fucking nuts to me. Like I get like, in prison, like much like gayer stuff happens, but like I was like, we're not in prison, you don't have to do that. And so I remember like the only time I had alone was like with me doing my schoolwork. And I'm in an office and it's like middle of the day and there's like sun coming in and like there's literally someone like 6 yards outside the door like listening to me, like making sure I'm not fucking around or whatever. And I straight up like fucking beat my dick under the desk and like nutted into this like, oh my God, why am I saying this? I fucking like I did it. And then I went back to the bathroom and like disposed of everything properly. And it was a fucking crazy experience. But then again, I was in a crazy situation. Sometimes, that makes crazy things happen. It was I've never actually told anybody that in my entire life. So I might edit that out. Might not. I've kind of committed to it. But Anyway, I'm like, Jake, going all the way back, Jake, they let me use this laptop and it just sits in there and it's plugged up. I know the password. I watched them type in the password to it. Like, we can get on there. I've been texting my friends because I figured out how to like sign into my iCloud and sign out. And so I'd been texting my friends and like telling everyone like, yo, I'm okay, but like life's crazy. Like crazy shit's been going on. And definitely texting this girl. I was texting this girl a lot. Letting her know like, I care about you still or whatever. So Jake's like, you gotta sneak in there and you gotta go get it. And so one night, it's only me and Jake awake, and like, we're waiting to like see this dude, cause like they'd come out of the off, like he camps in the office in like one of the back rooms or something, and would like come out every hour and like check on everybody and check on the property and make sure no one like disappeared. I think they would do like a count or whatever, and like make sure no one disappeared, make sure that like nobody's causing a fool or anything. And I remember like in the office, I like cracked the window the day before when I'm doing schoolwork. Like I unlock it and I open it to make sure it opens. And there's like a little screen on it. And I kind of like push it out a little bit and then close the window back. So I like knew I could get back in there. And that night, I'm like, all right, Jake, I'm going for the laptop. Like, wish me luck. And I fucking like, I hopped out I didn't want to go out the door of our place, so I like snuck out this like bathroom window that was like super small. I probably didn't even need to do that, but I did it anyway. And I like crawl out this window, and like Jake's in there like lifting me up and like hoisting me out this window. And I'm like crouch walking like crab legging across this like property, trying not to get spotted by like the Nazis with the spotlights and the rifles who were gonna like gun me down. And like, you know what I mean, like it felt like the goddamn gulag. And my adrenaline's pumping, and I go, and the window's prepped. It's perfect. I open it up, and I pull the screen out, and, being real quiet and stuff. And the laptop is literally within view. And as I'm about to walk in, the lights in the other room, like outside the door, come on. I'm like, fuck. And so I like kind of set the screen back, and I slowly slide the window down. I like get to the side, and I like kind of looking at it, making sure nothing's going on. And I don't know what was going on, but the lights eventually shut off. And I like pull the screen back out. I like get through the window, and dude, I was so scared of getting caught, because they always threaten you with like, if you pull some like stupid bullshit, we're just gonna extend the time you have to spend here. That was what they threatened all the time. Maybe I don't think it had like actually any like foundation to it. Like I don't think they could like legally do that for most of the people there, but like they always threatened you with it, and everyone was so like sick of the shit that they're like, oh fuck, like I don't want another week here, because and this actually happened, because I like opened my asshole to the person who opened the door, and it ended up being like the head person, who was like a very like very independent, strong black woman. And this dude's like 32. he's like the oldest dude in the camp. And he thought it'd be funny to like have his ass. No. So he tucked his dick and balls behind his legs and squeezed, and he called it like a dead bird. And then he would like spread his ass cheeks out, and he just had this dead bird pointed straight at like the front door for like the next guy that walks in. And the door opens, and it's the woman director of the whole program, this like 30-year-old black woman who's like super like tough on us and like very like hard on us. And this dude's like hairy ass and his hairy dead bird is pointed like straight at her head. Like they told him he was gonna stay. They threatened to kick him out, but then like everyone in the camp was like explaining that like, no, he does the dead bird all the time, which probably didn't help his case, but he does it all the time, and he wasn't meaning to hit you. Like it's not like he was trying to like show you his dick and balls and asshole. Like it was a total mistake. Like everyone had his side because we thought that shit was fucking hilarious, because it was fucking funny. But yeah, they threatened to like extend his stay there or whatever, and like all this shit, and it was fucking crazy. He eventually did get kicked out of the program. We were playing volleyball, and he like just punched a dude, like crashed out. But anyway, so Extending the stay. Yeah, so I was terrified of getting my stay extended. Like, I kept hearing that, like, other people were getting their stays extended or whatever, and I was like, I'm not doing that. So, like, my heart's pounding, I, like, grab this laptop, and I, like, just, like, sprint back across the property. And I remember FaceTiming this girl. I might FaceTime my butt. Like, my memory's shot from a lot of bad decisions after all this, but, like, I might have FaceTimed like a homie of mine, and he was like, no way, like, you're FaceTiming me in rehab. And I was like, yeah, I just stole like a laptop that I'm not supposed to have. There's, he's like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, and I FaceTimed the girl, and I was like, like, blah, 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 I can't wait to see you, whatever. Come to find out, she had sent me a couple letters, and like, we kept in touch, but when I got kidnapped, like, I was like, look, like, you're a lot of like my energy, and I have no energy to devote to anything besides like figuring out what the fuck's happening to my life right now. And she sent me some like loaded letter when I was in like, was it the desert? Or was it rehab? She sent me a letter at one point during all this shit and was like saying a bunch of stuff, and I never responded. I never wrote her back. No, it was in the desert, because I got her letter with all of my like soccer buddies and my high school buddies, and they were all like, hope you're doing well or whatever. And I remember writing all of them back, because that's easy. It's easy to write like a thanks, man, hope everything's good, bro, y'all drink like a beer for me, pour one out for your homie. That's a lot easier letter to write than like what are we gonna be when you get back, because when you left you were talking about like, we were in the middle of like talking about love. And that's a harder letter to write. And I was not going to write that letter. I was not going to respond to some bullshit that you send me in the mail that I get in the desert. And maybe she wanted it to be some like rom-com fucking like bullshit off a Hallmark, but it's not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not. But she got all pissy as I FaceTime her, like, she's like, like, oh, like, can't wait to like see you again. But it was kind of like a weird call. And I was like, Come to find out, like, after I didn't write her back, for whatever the fuck reason, I mean, she was the last person I talked to before I got kidnapped. She was the last person I saw before I ran away. And so whatever the fuck reason, she thinks that, like, I don't like her anymore and just dates some dude. I still hold that against you. I really do. Fuck that. But she was like, yeah, it's your fault. You didn't write me back. And I'm like, okay. It's just a dramatic fucking movie rom-com with this bitch. Yeah. Bitch, I said it. Anyway, we're not going to dive into all that. So I FaceTime her, and then Jake FaceTimes this girl who's like super hot, and she's like, Jake's like, yo, like, this is my homie Pat, but like, him and this girl were like having a good relationship. Like, maybe it was probably pretty fucked up, because all of our relationships were fucked up. Like, they were having a good one. And I remember he's FaceTiming this girl, and like, she knows I'm like sitting right next to him, but she was like, Jake, like, I miss you so much. Like, let me show you what you're missing, and just like pulls her fucking tits out and like turns around, like shows her ass, and me and Jake are like, whoa, like, wow, like, that's awesome. I'm like, Jake, like, that's what I need, man. Like, that is love, dude. Yeah, so that was the story with the laptop. I told Jake to go take it back, because someone had to take it and someone else had to take it back, but he totally pussied out and was like, Pat, I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like, Jake, they find this laptop in this house, like, they're gonna raise hell. Like, they're gonna raise more hell than like the dead bird. You know what I mean? Like, all hell is gonna break loose. And he's like, Pat, I can't do it. You have to do it. I'm like, dude, you're fucking 4 years older than me or whatever. Like, why am I the one like doing all the crazy shit or whatever? Anyway, another fun story that happened was, I mentioned like the research chemicals and these kids who were like super fried off these things. And this is after we had discovered like the TV. No, this was before we had discovered like the TVs and stuff. I mean, look, there's a reason that like a bunch of weird like gay sexual shit happens at like prison. It's because like you coop a bunch of like men up, and they're just so like horned up and like weird, and then like whatever. And so like we had been talking about ways to like get off or whatever. And some dude had proposed, like, he was like, look, like, this is what you do. You get a latex glove and you put it in this like rolled up towel, and you like fold the
the wrist part of the glove over the outside of this towel, and then you lube the middle of the glove and you fuck. And he's like, yeah, it's just like a pocket pussy. That's what they do in prison. I was like, you ever been to prison? He's like, no, but I saw it on like a Reddit post or something. We're like, what the fuck? So anyway, like we were decided, like, fuck it, we're just gonna make these like prison pockets. I think that's what he called them, actually. Hold on, let me grab a sip of beer. We're just gonna make these prison pockets as like a science experiment, like a little class experiment, just to like say we did it while we were in rehab because we thought it'd be funny. And it's me and these two other dudes, and we're like in the kitchen, like crafting these like. We like took these towels and we rolled them up as tight as we could, and like we like found like we didn't have the latex gloves, but we found Ziploc bags and we're like trying to fold it over. Anyway, there's this one guy that like is like super fried off of chemicals, and this dude would just like piss himself like in the middle of like group circles or whatever, and like this guy like you actually couldn't talk to. He didn't know what was going on like ever. He couldn't hold a conversation with you. He couldn't look you in the eye. Like, he would always, like, shake and, like, kind of laugh at something, or, would just, like, get in, like, a weird psychosis and just, like, not talk to anybody and get kind of paranoid. And so we're sitting in the kitchen crafting these, like, prison pockets, and this dude, like, walks in. And, like, for the first time, like, I'd ever seen in, like, the maybe 3.5 weeks I've known him, like, he, like, stops and, like, notices that we're like right there, and he kind of looks at what we're doing, and he like giggles. And then for the first time I hear him speak, and he's like that's not what you do. And we're all looking at this guy like, what? He's like, that's not what you do. And this kid goes and he fucking grabs a banana, because we had like a little snack bar of all this like snacks. He grabs a banana and he cuts it in half, and he just sticks it in the microwave. And he's like giggling the whole time. Like he thought this was fucking hilarious. And we're like, what's this little fucker cooking up? And then he like squeezes out like the shit from the inside of the banana, and then just told us to fuck it. It was the only interaction I ever had with this dude. After that, he went back into like psychosis and like never spoke again. But he like was like giggling his ass off, like it was like a little kid giggling. It was kind of like freaky, but he's giggling and he's like telling us to like fuck this like warmed up banana peel. Yeah, really strange experience. I left the property one time. They eventually split us up into two houses because they were like the quarantine shit's getting out of hand. We're too many people, so they sent us off to this like other like residential neighborhood. Like, I couldn't imagine being, like, a renter in, like, outskirts of Austin, Texas. Like, you're, like, renting a home and, like, trying to, like, live a normal life. And next door are, like, 12 dudes who are, like, in rehab that, like, are just living in the house next to you, like, causing a fucking fool all the time. But they put us over there, and, dude, I think it was, I know it was something stupid. Like, stupid. I think they said they were going to take us on, like, an outing, and then they didn't. And this one dude named Will just, like, full-blown crashes out. And, like, he's, like, trying to, like, get everyone on his side. He's like, they promised us this, and they just strip it away from us. Like, they don't treat us like adults. And, like, I was like, yeah. And he's like, fuck this. And so he walks out. But, like, me and Will were pretty close. And I was like, all right, bet. Me and Will are, like, dipping. I was like, peace, middle fingers up, like, peace, see y'all later. And so we like walk around the neighborhood, and I'm like, Will, where are we going? Like a fucking like dog like following my owner. I'm like, Will, where are we going? Like, what's actually happening? Like, are you really that mad about all this? And he's like, yeah, I'm fucking pissed, blah blah blah. And then some dude and like one of the staff like rolls up in a car behind us, and he's like, boys, come back, boys, you're gonna, you can't go anywhere. Boys, what are you actually mad about? Like, what's actually upsetting y'all? Or whatever. And he, like, did it for, like, 20 minutes. And we would, like, turn around every now and then and be like, fuck you. Like, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. Fuck this place. Fuck this shit. Eventually, he coerced us back. And he's like, I'll go to Kroger right now. I'll buy y'all whatever y'all want.
We're like, all right, bet. Like, that's a tough deal to pass up. I remember at the second house, because the first house had the private chef, but the second house, it just was like a smaller house and it had its own kitchen or whatever. They're like, somebody's got to cook. Like, somebody's got to figure out what we need for like groceries wise and like cook. And that ended up being my job. I would order which we had like an unlimited budget, which was baller as fuck, and there was a grill in the backyard, so I would order us like steaks. Cause I remember I mentioned it. I was like, like I need to have a say in groceries if you want me like cooking shit that's like actually good. And they're like, fuck it, what do you want? I was like, we need steaks, we need chicken, we need butter, we need garlic, we need Worcestershire soy sauce, we need green beans, broccoli. I went through the whole thing. And I would like grill these steaks for these boys. This is kind of where my love for like steak cooking started. Like I cooked steaks before that, but like cooking for like 12 hungry like men was like definitely a way to learn how to like bulk cook a bunch of like red meat and get it the right temperature. And a lot of these dudes told me I made the best steak they ever had, which was like, it sounded cool. And I remember I told you I was like wilder chef at the wilderness program. Let me get another sip of beer and figure out where I'm going with all this. Something else that was cool. They sent you cigarettes or nicotine, to like, tide you over from like your methamphetamine addiction. And I remember this dude like shows up and he's like this dude was like full of energy, full blown crash out. And he's like, I got arrested and they sent me here. I haven't had nicotine in forever. And he was like, I remember the first like 2 days, he's just like crashing out. He kept asking everybody for like cigarettes and stuff, which it's funny because my parents would never, I asked them, I was like, can I get cigarettes? Can y'all buy me cigarettes? Because somebody on the outside has to buy them and send them to you. And they were like, no, that's your drug of choice. Like, oh, so fucking stupid. Because all these dudes would smoke all the time. And they would give me a cigarette when I asked. And so I'm like, what? Like, it made no sense to me at all. But anyway, this dude's full-blown crash out. He's like, I need nicotine. We give him cigarettes. He's like, this isn't what I need. I don't smoke. It's not good for me, but like, I'll take it. Anyway, he gets like 2 rolls of Zens in the mail. And this was before I even knew what a Zen was. Like 5 years ago, he gets a roll, like 2 rolls of Zens in the mail. And he's sitting at the computer and he's like doing something on it. And I'll watch him throw 4 of them in his mouth. And we're I guess I never knew what it was. So I'm like talking to him, like, dude, what is that? And he's like, you just put them up here and it feels great. Like 20 seconds later, he leans over the trash can and throws up maybe 4.5 pounds of like vomit. It was fucking horrible. That was actually the first time I ever saw a Zen. And I saw what it did to this kid. And I'm like, I'm never doing that shit. Never. I got some right here. I'm actually about to throw one in. Because just talking about it kind of like stimulates that drug addiction I have. And I got to get that DOC in my body. I got to feel it. Find a vein and look for it. God, where is this? Anyway. Rehab was wild. It was a long time of just like learning stuff. I became like a ping pong champion. We played a lot of like sting pong, where like if you lose a round, like you get smacked and like they would like hit the ping pong ball and try to put a welt on your back. I became like an absolute god at that game. Like I actually only lost once, like a round once where, like they shot at me. It was an interesting time. It was just crazy. Not a whole lot else happened in there. I remember like the whole time I'm bitching to my parents. I'm just like, thank you for bringing me back to civilization, but like I'm ready to get back to like normal life. And that, my therapist was like, you're trying to, why are you like why are you manipulating your parents to like getting you home? You need this. And I'm like, I don't learn anything. I'm scared to talk at the meetings because I'm scared to tell them I'm like addicted to vaping. And yes, I needed to be in the program. I didn't realize I needed to be there because I wasn't, I was just fed up with being like out of my reality. I was fed up with it. And so I go home. My parents finally come and pick me up. Finally. And I come home for the first time. They give me a phone in the car, and I remember like the whole car ride, like I was like telling everybody. And people had like found out through like friends with letters, or like obviously like they knew what was happening. I think like eventually my parents put out like it was almost like a press release where they were like, like Patrick is, it might have been like a Facebook. It was some like crazy like stupid shit. They were like, Patrick is, they like let everyone know, like all these parents and all these kids, like they let everyone know that I like was sent off to a camp. I don't even think they said like a rehabilitation camp or like anything about like rehab or like drugs or like having issues, because they didn't want anyone to know about all that. Which like I get, like it's not like I'm like being like negative towards that. Like I get it, but like to me at the time I'm like, well, like it was weird, and it's still kind of weird. But they're like, yeah, so he's off, getting better. All of my friends knew from like the girl and like my best friend that like where I actually was, what was actually happening, and what went down before I even got out there. And so I get back. I was so excited to get home, and I get home and I told all my boys like, pull up. We have to have a conversation about what the fuck just went down. And I remember my closest buddies like pulled up to my backyard, and we sit down, and I just like tell them like everything, like the whole story. I was so happy to see them, like I really was. But I remember seeing them for the first time, and it just felt like weird. Something had shifted from like before I left. I feel like before I left, like everything felt like sound. Like my position in like this friend group, whatever position it was, like my position was sound, my friendships were sound, like everything was sound, and like I knew what my part was, who I was. And like when I got back, like it felt like, it feels like everything was different. Everyone was kind of I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. I was so excited to see everyone coming back. Like I was so excited. I was so happy to like be back and be like, like okay. But honestly, and maybe this is what it was. They probably were trying to see if like I had changed at all. And I think like they were trying to see, it was like they were kind of trying to see if I was like the same person I was when I left. And maybe, I was sound in like that identity of like, they knew who I was. I was like a reckless and crazy, will do anything, will organize anything like motherfucker. And maybe they really thought like I needed help. I've never actually asked them to this day about like that. I don't know what they really thought. Like they always said like I didn't need it, and that was just kind of being a kid. But like I remember coming back and like seeing everybody, and it just felt different. And it was like a really disheartening experience. It was like, I don't know, like I just felt like fuck, like I'm trying to put all this shit behind me, I'm trying to put all this shit past me, and like here we like now it's like fuck, like I'm out, I'm an outcast now, and I'd committed to being sober and like told them I was done drinking, done smoking pot, like I'm a better person. And then obviously they tell me like, well, we just had the craziest summer of our lives, like everything went down, like we wish you were here this whole time, like but like shit got crazy this summer. And I missed what I think was probably like one of the most important like summers of like my whole whatever. It was important to me. My summer was important to me too. It was a honeymoon phase. I mentioned it a little bit last episode. It was definitely like a honeymoon phase of like getting back and like everyone's like kind of reaching out and like, oh my God, like I heard what happened. That's fucking insane. Like, I hope you're doing well. There's a honeymoon phase of that. And then it's like, well, I'm like, I was so like nervous to be around my parents because I hadn't lived with them in like forever. I wouldn't like in their house with their rules, but like everything was like pretty relaxed. They were like, just be honest with us and like everything's okay. Like, we've worked through all this. We're going to figure it all out. And, I was sober. Like, I'd hang out with my buddies and like they would drink and I'd be like, actually, I don't do that. Um, this and that. I remember going to like this like big Halloween party. And most of high school, my parents wouldn't let me go to these like things because they just knew like I would cause trouble or whatever. Like, they just didn't trust me, or I was grounded and I just missed the opportunity to go to these things. But there was this huge Halloween party. It was like an hour and a half away, and I wasn't gonna drink. And I was like, I want to drive everybody to this thing. And they're like, okay, you can drive my car. And I was like, whoa, like that's a step above. And I remember going out to this huge Halloween party and it was fucking insane. I saw a bunch of people from our school. Like, this kid got in a fight and like someone tried to drown him or something. Someone broke a chair over someone's head and like it was fucking madness. And I remember, the whole time, like I would see all these people, and there was a lot of people from a lot of different like groups and stuff that I hadn't seen since I got back. And they're like, oh, like, well, and I was like, I don't drink anymore. Like, I'm a different person or whatever. I remember driving back and like the car was completely full, like too many people in the car. One of my buddies is in the back, like making out with this girl, and my other buddy is like in the middle seat and he's just puking out the window. And while they're making out in the back, like the puke's flying out and like coming up on like the back window and just like covering the whole side of the car in fucking puke. And he's just like leaning half of his body out the car, just yakking for like 40 minutes as we drive out of the boonies of Mississippi. And we pull up to a gas station. The whole side of the car, of this white car, was like pink with just like nasty fucking like, what were they called? Like steels or something? Like blue steel. Some fucking bullshit gas station drink. The honeymoon period lasted not long. Eventually I smoked again for the first time. I felt so guilty about it. I was like, fuck, like I'm smoking weed. I can't, I'm breaking all the rules or whatever. And it lasted for a while. This like guilt. But then like I realized like if I'm able to manage it, then it's fine. And I really was able to manage it. I was being like super smart about everything. And, like, I was never gonna drive and like drink and drive. It didn't last. It lasted a good bit. Coming out of these programs, because I had started my senior year in rehab. I spent all summer in these programs, and I started senior year in rehab, like doing summer school, like prepping for like senior year. I get back and they just like throw me back in school. They just throw me the fuck back in school, and it was like crazy. It was just so crazy, like going back to school. It was fucking crazy. And then they were like, you get to decide what do you want to do for college? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to do? What job do you want to do for the rest of your life? What do you want to major in? And I was so like unprepared for it. I felt like I like get out of this program. My mental state's like super solid. And they just throw all the like, it's like you didn't miss out on real life. Like real life was waiting for you when you get back. And I just get slammed with like all these decisions. My whole life, like I wanted to go to like Ole Miss, like just like do the Ole Miss thing. But I get back home and I started dating that girl again. And I was like, fuck it. And I followed her to college for like this small school. She was up there for music, and I went up there just to go. My dad was actually up there. He went to school there, and he was like in a fraternity and stuff. And we went toward the campus, and it's like a shitty like version of our high school campus. And I was like, this might be good for me because I'm still mature. Like I still need like peace, I think. And so I followed her to school, and school didn't last long. And I made some crazy decisions up there. That's a whole nother story of like just like the bullshit we got into up there. Um, Eventually dropped out, started working full time, got I got heavy hooked into drugs before I dropped out. I was definitely into like bad stuff. And when I dropped out and moved away from it all and like moved back home with my parents, because like when I just decided like enough's enough, like I can't do it, I moved back home and I got hooked even worse. And so it's funny because I mentioned it last episode, but you can't force anybody to grow. You can't force anybody to learn. You have to like let people hit rock bottom. Some people don't make it out of rock bottom. I know, God knows, and I know that I almost didn't. But I had to go there, and I definitely took a very long fall to hit the bottom. A very long and hard and probably hard to watch fall to hit the bottom. I'm compacting like a year and a half, 2 years of my life into like 20 seconds. But I don't want to get into it all. You know, this is all getting posted to like the internet, and like I can't go too much into it, but like I definitely lost my mind. I definitely like straight up like lost my fucking mind. I think I'm cool now. Y'all think I sound like pretty sane, kind of sane? I don't know. Most of the time I feel like most people think I'm kind of insane, but isn't that exciting? Isn't that better than being just seen as like some dude? I think so. So that was just kind of like, I wanted to wrap up the rest of like the story I started last night. Wrap it up, you know. I have to tell it. This episode is probably not as exciting as like the first half of it, but I had to tell it. You know, I got to get all this out of my system. Going forward, I kind of want to like get into like, I want to use this as an outlet for how I feel about certain things. I found myself recently in my life over the past like 2 months, like really wanting to. I've always felt like I just always like loved like thinking about like things and just seeing things as they were, and I just feel like it doesn't happen enough at all. It doesn't happen enough. Like I would bring up like you know, like for example, like I went and got a beer with my roommate the other night, and I'm like, dude, like we're talking about shit, and he's telling me like, you know, what he does for work. He's like cybersecurity for like healthcare facilities, but I'm like, isn't it weird that like, you know, like about AI and like what's happening with AI? Not to get into like this oversaturated fucking topic because everyone's talking about it, but I was like, isn't that weird that like we exist like now when like I was explaining to him like it's almost because he was telling me the systems in the hospitals are outdated and that all those hospitals are about to close in Tennessee, like 50% of them. And he just wishes, you know, he thinks that we should just go back to paper because like at least then like you don't have all these like holes in the firewall of like being able to get hacked and like data security and this and that, and these hospitals are going bankrupt trying to like protect consumer data because if they don't, then it's like a $20 million lawsuit and then they just go bankrupt anyway. And I was like, isn't it weird that like the only solution to this type of problem is AI, but the reason that the problem exists, it's like our fault. Like it goes beyond that industry only, but like all these industries are like outdated. Like everything's just outdated, and we've kind of put ourselves in this like hole, this like problem. We created a problem for ourselves. We did it like 20 years ago. And we knew in the future that we were going to have to solve this problem, but the people 20 years ago were like, fuck it. They'll figure it out. And so now we're at the point of like we have to figure all this shit out or like all hell breaks loose. And it's like it seems like they're pushing like the only solution is going to be AI. And I got into like AI like integration and like how like, you know, when the first people like integrate with AI, like obviously you have a choice of like to integrate with AI or not, but like when you realize that the people who do it are 20 times better at everything that they do than the people who don't, it's like comparing like the flip phone to the iPhone. Like obviously people still owned flip phones for a very, very, very long time, like after people got iPhones, but then once the masses got the iPhones, I mean, it's just everyone knew that it's just better than a flip phone. So like I was like, isn't it crazy that like of any time we could all be alive, like this is the time that we're alive when like we've witnessed like I haven't. He's a little bit older than me, but like we've witnessed all the big changes in like humanity. Like the dawn of the internet was like the 90s. The dawn of like smartphones and like all that shit was early 2000s, and now we're at the point of like an internet society, and not, and it's coming to the next big leap, which is like AI and quantum computing, which is, God bless the people, the ladies and gentlemen of STEM, because I don't get it. I don't understand it. How is something like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up. I won't be able to explain it to you at all, but quantum computing, it will blow your fucking mind. And we're alive to witness all of this. But all of this is just a solution to a problem that we've created and put on ourselves. And like, I was like blown away by it. Well, I got into that on that rant. I do that often, but I want to use this as an outlet for kind of sitting down and reminding myself to think about some of the things that are like so normalized and like just like forgotten about. You know, things that in our life that are crazy, like the existence of AI, which if you really think about, which it's just normalized to us. It's been like normalized. You know, everyone uses ChatGPT, but when you really think like, what is it? You're like, it is fucking insane. And it's going to change the world in the next 4 years, if not sooner. Like, it's not going to change the world. It's going to change your world. That's the thing. It's like, it's not going to change the world around you. And like, yeah, people are like, okay, yeah, it's going to change. No, it's going to change how you interact with the world. It's going to infiltrate and intrude your personal circle, your network. It's going to, because the phones already do it. You can't argue that the phones don't already do it. Like, everyone's addicted to their fucking phone. I can't even sit down and like have a conversation with like a big group of people without people like looking at their fucking phone. That's already crazy enough. And we're going to go into that in a different episode. But like, the phone, right? The phone is a device, and you have to like use your hands to like get on the phone and swipe and open up apps and stuff. And like, there's like a barrier between you and the technology of the phone. And it's the fact that like it's a device and you have to use it. AI is going to break that barrier. It's going to be like the final straw. And eventually, I hypothesize that it's going to be, you know, AirPods are popular and everyone kind of wears like an AirPod in their ear. I do it all the time at work, and I might not even be listening to anything, but I still have the AirPod in my ear. What I think is going to happen the next 2 years is you're going to have an AI model that is just on standby. And whether you wear it in your ear or anything, they're going to try to like get you comfortable with the idea of having your phone, but it's just the AI model that will do everything and give you everything you need, and you don't actually have to carry a device with you. I think that's going to become like old. Like, it's not, you know, it's just going to trend out once you realize that like you can have something like a small thing that you wear on your ear or somewhere on you that like does everything that your phone does. And people might still have like a screen and stuff because they want to like look at stuff, but like that's going to happen. You know, cars aren't going to have screens in them. There's actually legislation that's passing that like is saying that like all these new like big ass screens in these cars is distracting, because it really is. It really is. My grandfather, he drives this like fucking Mercedes,
And I got in there one time and he's like asking me how to open the sunroof, which should be a pretty like simple thing to do. It took me 45 minutes to figure out how to open the sunroof on this thing. And the screen is bigger than this monitor screen that I'm looking at, which is fucking huge. And it's all just like this weird tech. And I think like there might be a screen in there for like maybe, but I think it's all just going to get replaced with like AI models. So AI models are going to kind of like take the place of like the actual device. And it's going to, dude, I'm telling you, it's fucking crazy. Like when you really kind of like study what's happening, you're like, it gets fucking nutty, people. It gets fucking nutty. But that's kind of what I want to use this podcast for, is because I think about all this shit, different shit all the time, whether it's like technology, whether it's like how the world actually works and like why it happens like that. And like I'll spit these ideas out to people around me and nobody can like, everyone's just like, yeah, man, that's fucking crazy. And it's just like, I feel like sometimes like I'm awake, not awake. I don't want to say like, I'm awake, like I'm woke. I see the real world for what it is and all these other people are sheep. Because it's not like that. Like, I understand, like, there's a grueling process of like this recognizing of like everything is just kind of this like weird, like you're kind of like living in like this weird limbo. And once you kind of like scratch the surface of this limbo, you start to realize that like everything is really, really weird. And I can't explain that to the, people close to me and my family and shit. I'll bring up these topics to like people like my aunt and my mom. Like sometimes they'll sit me down. Like when we're all together, they'll sit me down. And they're like, have you ever like really, really tried to like find Jesus? Which we'll get into an episode of like what I believe the world is. We'll get there at some point. God, it's too early, y'all. It's definitely too early now. But they're just like, have you ever tried to find Jesus? And I'll like go on some like long rant about like how I believe like this and that. And like, yes, like Jesus was like a messenger, and he had like a extreme, whatever. I'll really like go off the wall. And they just, I have no one to talk to about this stuff. Therapy doesn't work because that person's just trying to like, they're using their like textbook knowledge to like identify a problem that, they're going to take all the information I'm giving them, which is just usually like how I feel and what I believe. They're going to try to like link that to some textbook information that identifies a problem. And they're just going to try to like feed me a solution that the textbook taught them, is the solution to that problem. So therapy doesn't work. I can't go to fucking church and talk to people about it because the pastor is just, ingrained in like pray and Jesus and this and that. So I have no outlet for any of these like ideas and like ways I feel. And so y'all are going to be that outlet. And it's just going to be me sitting here on a mic, like just like spitting this out into the world, and whatever happens, happens. But like, that is what I want this thing to become. But it's my first week, and I'm still getting used to it, and I obviously have a lot to improve upon. And I should probably prepare a little bit more before these things, and maybe not drink like 4 Heinekens when I'm doing it. But it's my 3rd episode. I'm 1 week in. I'm kind of thinking I might do only 3 episodes a week. Tomorrow I might open the stream up, set a timer for like 30 minutes, and read chat. So if anybody wants to like, if anybody has any questions or anything about like any episode I've had this week, use tomorrow to like kind of catch up on it. And when I go live, like come in here and like talk to me, ask me questions. And if nobody's in the chat, like I'll just do like a small podcast, like a 45 or 30-minute podcast where I read chat. And I think that's going to be like a good like Thursday. Friday I'm not doing shit for y'all. I got the weekend. It's my weekend. We gonna live it up. But yeah, this episode, I know I was all over the place. At least y'all got to hear about like how interesting Rehab was and all the shit that went down in there. Like, yeah, people were fucking bananas and fucking like Ziploc bags and towels and shit. Like, it was crazy. And it was funny is like the therapist was right the whole time. Like, I definitely was like high risk for like drug addiction, and I definitely didn't listen to anything they told me to, and I suffered because of it. But if that ain't life, then what is, you know? I still have to go to the gym. It's fucking 9:30, folks. I love fucking talking to y'all on this. Like, I like it. I got the nicest comment in the world today. It's actually my first comment. I want to give a shout out to my boy J Money. Wrote a nice comment and said, like, his comment read, like, I would actually listen to this pod in the car. Like, keep up the good work. That fucking motivates me. That makes me, like, inspired. It makes me feel like whatever crazy shit I've been saying, like, at least someone is hearing it and enjoys it enough to where they want more of it. And that's really cool. But I am going to end it off here. I don't want to go to the gym, but we're going to go. We always end the episodes with a random fact. So we're going to get a random fact right here. Dude, GPT like has like answers like loaded. Like this is twice now I've asked like for a random fact, and it gave me the first episode's random fact, and what I did last night was ask it again, and then it just gives me last night's question. So like I'm gonna say, how about another fun fact? Fucking AI. So maybe like my hypothesis is wrong. Maybe AI is just fucking stupid, and maybe I'm stupider, and I just think like this is gonna like change the world, and it can't even give me a good fucking fun fact and remember that I already asked it for that one. Maybe I'm an idiot. Let's see. Fun fact of the night. Octopuses. Is that the plural form of octopus? I thought it was octopi. Octopuses have 3 hearts, and their blood is blue because it contains copper instead of iron. Three hearts, and their blood is blue because copper instead of iron. I wonder how the octopuses handle romantic relationships and how they breed. You know, they say love's in the heart. I wonder if like having 3 hearts is like if I wonder if they're like super like I wonder if they're more loyal to each other with 3 hearts, or if they're more you know, scandalous, if they're fucking around because of their 3 hearts, or if they're more loyal. And with blue blood, it's making me think that like they're just some cold 3-hearted fucking studs, you know, these killers, and they just fuck anything and everything they can fucking get their tentacles on. So think about the octopuses and their sexual relationships with each other while y'all get some sleep tonight. I got stuff to do. Y'all got stuff to do tomorrow. It's a big day for y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.